The wrestling world has exploded into chaos, and if you're not absolutely furious right now, then you haven't been paying attention. What happened at last night's Monday Night Raw wasn't just wrestling. It was a betrayal of everything this business stands for, and Seth Rollins just became the victim of the most underhanded, backstabbing, career-destroying interference we've ever witnessed in modern WWE. Let me paint you the picture of how your Monday night went from celebration to absolute devastation in less than 30 seconds. Seth Rollins, the visionary, the Monday Night Messiah, the man who has carried WWE on his shoulders for years, was seconds away from retaining his championship in what should have been a career-defining victory. The crowd was on their feet, the energy was electric, and then, boom, out of nowhere comes Bron Breakker with a spear so vicious, so perfectly timed, so absolutely devastating that it didn't just cost Seth the match, it may have cost him his entire legacy. And here's what's going to make your blood boil: this wasn't some random act of violence. This wasn't heat of the moment chaos. This was calculated. This was planned. This was a systematic destruction of everything Seth Rollins has built, orchestrated by people who couldn't beat him fair and square, so they decided to rip his championship away from him through the most cowardly means possible. The match itself was pure poetry in motion. Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, and folks, let me tell you something, Seth was dominating. Not just winning, not just competing, but absolutely destroying the beast incarnate in ways we've never seen before. Every single move Seth executed was flawless. Every counter was perfect. Every high-flying maneuver landed with surgical precision that left Brock gasping for air and the audience losing their minds. For 25 minutes, Seth Rollins proved why he deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and John Cena. He was hitting superkicks that could have decapitated a lesser man. His stomp attempts were coming so close that you could feel the entire arena holding its breath. Brock Lesnar, the man who has demolished everyone from The Undertaker to Roman Reigns, was on the ropes, and Seth was about to deliver the final blow that would cement his place as the greatest WWE champion of this generation. But then the unthinkable happened. The lights flickered for just a moment, and that's when he appeared. Bron Breakker, the so-called future of WWE, the muscle-bound monster who has been lurking in the shadows, waiting for his moment to strike like a coward in the night. The crowd's cheers turned to confused murmurs, then to outright boos as they realized what was about to unfold. Seth didn't see him coming. How could he? The man was locked in combat with a 300-pound killing machine, focused on the championship that he had worked his entire career to hold. His back was turned, his guard was down, and he was positioning himself for what should have been the victory-sealing stomp that would have sent the fans home happy and kept the title around the waist of someone who actually deserves it. That's when Bron Breakker struck with the precision of a viper and the power of a freight train. The spear he delivered wasn't just a wrestling move, it was an assassination attempt. The sound of shoulder meeting ribs echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Seth's body folded in half like a broken accordion, his championship dreams evaporating in an instant as he crumpled to the mat in agony. And here's the part that should make every wrestling fan sick to their stomach: Bron didn't just spear Seth and leave. Oh no, that would have been too merciful for this absolute monster. He stood over Seth's broken body, flexing his muscles and soaking in the boos from a crowd that couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The arrogance, the complete disrespect, the total lack of honor, it was disgusting. But the nightmare wasn't over. While Seth was writhing in pain, clutching his ribs and struggling to breathe, Brock Lesnar, that opportunistic vulture, saw his chance and pounced like the predator he's always been. The F5 that followed wasn't a wrestling move, it was a mercy killing. Seth was already unconscious from the spear, but Brock had to add insult to injury, spinning him around like a rag doll before planting him face first into the canvas with enough force to crack concrete. The 3 count that followed felt like it lasted an eternity. 1, and you could hear a pin drop in the arena. 2, and 20,000 fans simultaneously felt their hearts break. 3, and just like that, Seth Rollins' championship reign was over, not because he was beaten by a better man, but because he was robbed by a coward who didn't have the courage to face him one-on-one. The celebration that followed was absolutely sickening. Brock Lesnar holding up the championship he didn't earn, while Bron Breakker stood in the corner with a smirk on his face that made every decent wrestling fan want to throw their television through a window. The commentary team was speechless, the crowd was in shock, and somewhere in the back, WWE management was probably celebrating the controversy they had just created. But let's talk about what this really means for the wrestling business. This wasn't just one match, one title change, one moment of bad booking. This was a statement. WWE just told every single fan that hard work doesn't matter. They told us that dedication doesn't matter. They told us that being the best wrestler in the world doesn't matter if you don't have the right friends in the right places. Seth Rollins has been carrying WWE on his shoulders for years. When Roman Reigns was out with health issues, who stepped up? Seth Rollins. When the company needed someone to have classic matches with legends like Triple H and The Undertaker, who delivered? Seth Rollins. When they needed someone to make part-time performers like Brock Lesnar look good, who sacrificed his body night after night? Seth Rollins. And this is how they repay him. By having some roided-up rookie destroy him from behind like a common criminal. By letting Brock Lesnar, a man who shows up 6 times a year and collects a paycheck bigger than most wrestlers make in a decade, steal a championship that should belong to someone who actually cares about this business. The worst part is that this sets a terrible precedent for every young wrestler watching. What message does this send to the boys and girls training in developmental territories right now? That talent doesn't matter. That years of dedication and sacrifice can be erased by one moment of outside interference. That the only way to get ahead is to align yourself with the biggest bullies in the locker room. Bron Breakker claims he did this to make an impact and announce his arrival to the main roster. What he actually did was announce that he's nothing more than a coward who can't earn his opportunities through talent and hard work. Instead of proving himself by beating established stars in fair fights, he chose to attack someone from behind like a common thug. And don't even get me started on the complete silence from WWE management about this travesty. Where was Triple H? Where was the authority figure who should have immediately reversed this decision and stripped Brock of a title he didn't legitimately win? Instead, we get radio silence while one of the most beloved champions in recent memory gets his career destroyed by corporate politics and backstage manipulation. The fan reaction has been explosive, and rightfully so. Social media is on fire with wrestling fans expressing their absolute outrage at what they witnessed. The hashtag justice for Seth has been trending worldwide for over 12 hours, with fans from every corner of the globe demanding that WWE do the right thing and restore Seth to his rightful place as champion. But here's what's really going to make you angry: this was all planned. You think Bron Breakker just happened to be in the right place at the right time? You think his perfectly timed spear was just a coincidence? Absolutely not. This was orchestrated from the top down, a corporate decision to manufacture controversy at the expense of sporting integrity and fan loyalty. The evidence is overwhelming when you really look at the details. Bron's music didn't hit when he came to ringside. That's not an accident, that's intentional. The referee was mysteriously distracted at the exact moment the interference occurred. That's not coincidence, that's coordination. The camera angles perfectly captured every moment of the attack. That's not luck, that's production planning. WWE thinks we're stupid. They think we'll just accept whatever garbage they feed us and keep cheering like mindless zombies. Well, I've got news for them. The wrestling fans of 2025 are smarter than that, angrier than that, and more passionate than that. We know when we're being manipulated, and we're not going to stand for it. This entire situation becomes even more infuriating when you consider Seth's recent performances. The man has been putting on 5-star classics week after week, defending his championship against all comers, and proving beyond any shadow of a doubt that he deserves to be the face of WWE. His matches with Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, and even Brock Lesnar himself have been absolute masterpieces of professional wrestling. Remember his incredible match against CM Punk just 3 weeks ago. A technical masterpiece that showcased everything that makes professional wrestling the greatest form of entertainment on earth. Remember his promo work, cutting interviews that made you believe every single word he said. Remember the way he carried himself as champion, with dignity, respect, and the kind of class that WWE champions should embody. All of that, destroyed in 30 seconds by a man who hasn't proven he belongs in the same ring as Seth Rollins, let alone interfering in his championship matches. Bron Breakker talks about being the future, but the future of what? The future of cowardly attacks and unearned opportunities. The future of destroying the careers of better men just to get ahead. That's not a future any wrestling fan should want. And let's be brutally honest about Brock Lesnar's role in this absolute disaster. The man shows up whenever his bank account needs refilling, phones in performances that would embarrass wrestlers half his age, and then disappears for months at a time while real wrestlers like Seth carry the load. But now he's champion again because he was in the right place when Seth got mugged by Bron Breakker. Brock's victory celebration was pathetic. No emotion, no passion, just the cold, calculating demeanor of a man who knows he didn't earn what he just received. He held up that championship like it was just another paycheck, which is probably exactly how he sees it. Meanwhile, Seth was being helped to the back by medical personnel, his championship dreams shattered by forces completely beyond his control. The commentary team's reaction told you everything you needed to know about how wrong this finish was. Michael Cole, a man who has called thousands of matches and seen every kind of finish imaginable, was speechless. Wade Barrett, usually quick with analysis and explanation, could barely string together a coherent sentence. Even Pat McAfee, who usually finds humor in chaos, sat in stunned silence as the reality of what had just happened sank in. But here's what WWE doesn't want you to think about: the long-term damage this does to their product. Wrestling fans invest emotionally in championships and the wrestlers who hold them. When you destroy that investment through illegitimate finishes and outside interference, you're not creating compelling television, you're destroying the trust between performer and audience that makes professional wrestling work. How can we ever take another Seth Rollins championship match seriously, knowing that at any moment some random wrestler might run in and destroy months of storytelling? How can we invest in any championship storyline when WWE has proven they're willing to throw away legitimate competition in favor of cheap shock value? The ripple effects of this betrayal are already being felt throughout the wrestling world. Independent promotions are using this as ammunition to criticize WWE's booking decisions. Other wrestling companies are reaching out to Seth's representatives, hoping to capitalize on fan dissatisfaction with his treatment. Wrestling journalists are calling this the worst booking decision of the year, and we're only 8 months into 2025. Social media platforms are absolutely exploding with fan reaction videos, and they're all saying the same thing. This was wrong, this was unfair, and this was the kind of booking that drives dedicated fans away from the product they love. Wrestling fans are passionate people, and when you betray that passion for cheap heat and manufactured controversy, you're playing with fire that could burn down everything you've built. The international reaction has been even more intense. Wrestling fans in Japan, the UK, Mexico, and throughout Europe are expressing complete bewilderment at WWE's decision to destroy one of their most talented performers in favor of someone who hasn't proven he deserves a spot in the main event. Social media posts in dozens of languages all express the same sentiment: this was a mistake of epic proportions. But perhaps the most telling reaction has been from other wrestlers. While most are staying diplomatically silent in public, sources backstage report that the locker room is furious about how Seth was treated. Veterans and young wrestlers alike are questioning a system that allows outside interference to determine championship outcomes, especially when it involves someone of Seth's caliber and dedication. The women's division superstars have been particularly vocal, with several taking to social media to express their support for Seth and their disappointment in the finish. These are wrestlers who know what it's like to fight for respect and recognition in a male-dominated industry, and they recognize the injustice of having years of hard work destroyed by one moment of cowardly interference. Even legends of the business are speaking out. While they're not mentioning names directly, several Hall of Famers have posted cryptic messages on social media that clearly reference the controversy. Stone Cold Steve Austin's tweet about earning your opportunities the right way was obviously directed at this situation. The Rock's Instagram post about respecting the championship couldn't have been more clear if he had tagged Seth directly. Wrestling podcasts and YouTube channels are dedicating entire episodes to breaking down this travesty, and the consensus is universal: this was a booking decision that will be remembered as one of the worst in WWE history. Respected wrestling journalists are calling for WWE management to address the situation immediately, either by reversing the decision or providing a clear explanation for why they chose to destroy their most reliable main event performer. The financial implications are already becoming apparent. Merchandise sales for Seth Rollins' championship gear have skyrocketed as fans show their support for him in the wake of this injustice. Meanwhile, early reports suggest that Brock Lesnar merchandise is actually selling worse than before he won the championship, because fans refuse to support what they see as an illegitimate title reign. Pay-per-view buy rates for the next major event are being closely watched by industry analysts, who are wondering whether fan anger over this situation will translate into people voting with their wallets. WWE's stock price has remained stable, but that could change quickly if fan dissatisfaction begins affecting their bottom line in measurable ways. The most frustrating part is that WWE has created this entire mess for no good reason. Seth Rollins as champion was working perfectly. The fans loved him, his matches were consistently excellent, and he was serving as the kind of fighting champion that WWE claims they want representing their company. But instead of allowing that success to continue, they chose chaos and controversy over quality and consistency. This decision becomes even more maddening when you consider the alternatives that were available. If WWE wanted to change champions, they could have booked a legitimate tournament. They could have created a storyline where Seth was forced to defend against multiple challengers in the same night. They could have done anything that would have preserved the sporting integrity that makes championship matches meaningful. Instead, they chose the laziest, most insulting option available: outside interference that made both the challenger and the new champion look weak. Brock Lesnar didn't win because he was better than Seth Rollins, he won because he had help from someone who attacked his opponent when he wasn't looking. That's not championship material, that's cowardice. The long-term booking implications of this decision are staggering. How do you build legitimate challengers for Brock when everyone knows he only won the championship because of interference? How do you create compelling storylines around a title that was won through cheating? How do you maintain any sense of sporting competition when championships can change hands through random attacks by wrestlers who aren't even officially part of the match? WWE has essentially admitted that their booking team is either incompetent or contemptuous of their audience's intelligence. There's no other explanation for a decision this poorly thought out, this damaging to their long-term storytelling, and this disrespectful to the performers and fans who make their company possible. The international wrestling community is laughing at WWE right now, and not in a good way. Promotions in Japan, Mexico, and the UK pride themselves on sporting integrity and legitimate competition. When they see WWE throwing away those principles for cheap shock value, it reinforces every negative stereotype about American wrestling being more concerned with entertainment than athleticism. But here's what makes this situation even more outrageous: Bron Breakker's complete lack of remorse or acknowledgement that what he did was wrong. In interviews since the incident, he's shown zero awareness that attacking someone from behind during a championship match is the act of a coward. Instead, he's talking about making an impact and seizing opportunities, as if what he did was somehow admirable. That attitude reveals everything you need to know about the culture WWE is creating backstage. When young wrestlers see that underhanded tactics are rewarded with main event opportunities, what incentive do they have to develop their skills, improve their craft, or earn their spots through legitimate means? WWE is literally training the next generation of wrestlers to be cheaters and cowards. The contrast with Seth's reaction couldn't be more stark. Despite being the victim of the most unfair finish in recent memory, he's conducted himself with class and dignity. His interviews since losing the championship have focused on his determination to earn another opportunity, not on seeking revenge or making excuses. That is how a true champion behaves, even in defeat. But WWE management seems determined to ignore the overwhelmingly negative reaction from their fanbase. Instead of addressing the controversy head-on, they're apparently planning to move forward as if nothing happened, hoping that fan anger will die down and be forgotten. That strategy shows a fundamental misunderstanding of wrestling fans and how passionate they are about the wrestlers and storylines they invest in emotionally. The silence from WWE's public relations department has been deafening. No statements, no explanations, no acknowledgement that they've upset their fanbase with this decision. It's as if they believe that ignoring the problem will make it go away, when in reality, their silence is only making fans angrier and more determined to make their voices heard. Wrestling message boards and social media platforms are organizing boycotts, petition drives, and coordinated efforts to make WWE understand that their fanbase will not tolerate this kind of treatment of their favorite performers. The passion and organization being shown by Seth Rollins' supporters is unlike anything we've seen in recent wrestling history, and it shows no signs of diminishing. The most heartbreaking aspect of this entire situation is watching Seth try to remain positive and professional despite being the victim of such a grave injustice. His interviews show a man who genuinely loves professional wrestling and believes in its potential to tell meaningful stories and create emotional connections with audiences. To see someone with that much passion and dedication get treated so poorly is absolutely infuriating. Independent wrestling promotions are already reaching out to Seth's representatives, hoping to book him for special appearances that would allow fans to show their support while giving him a platform to remind everyone why he's considered one of the best wrestlers in the world. These promotions understand that WWE has essentially created a massive marketing opportunity for anyone willing to treat Seth with the respect he deserves. The women's wrestling community has been particularly supportive, with many female wrestlers posting messages of encouragement and solidarity with Seth. They understand what it's like to have their hard work and dedication dismissed by corporate decision makers who prioritize politics over performance, and they recognize a kindred spirit in someone fighting against an unfair system. Even wrestlers from other companies who compete with WWE have expressed their support for Seth, recognizing that what happened to him could happen to anyone if corporate interference is allowed to determine championship outcomes. The wrestling community is usually divided by company loyalty, but this situation has united wrestlers across promotional lines in recognizing an injustice when they see one. The technical aspects of what happened make the situation even more maddening. Seth was having the match of his life, showcasing every aspect of his incredible skill set against one of the most dangerous opponents in WWE history. His chain wrestling was flawless, his high-impact moves were perfectly executed, and his ring psychology was showing why he's considered one of the best storytellers in the business today. Every near fall in that match meant something. Every reversal built tension. Every moment of back-and-forth action contributed to a growing sense that we were witnessing something special, a championship match that would be remembered for years as an example of wrestling at its absolute finest. Then, in one moment, all of that artistry was destroyed by a coward with a spear and an agenda. The crowd reaction throughout the match told the entire story. For 25 minutes, They were on the edge of their seats, invested in every move, believing in Seth's chances, and ready to explode in celebration when he retained his championship. The energy in that arena was electric, the kind of atmosphere that makes live wrestling events special and creates lifelong fans. Then came the spear, and you could literally hear the crowd's hearts breaking. The cheers turned to confused murmurs, then to angry boos, then to the kind of stunned silence that indicates something fundamentally wrong has just happened. That reaction should have told WWE everything they needed to know about how their fans felt about the finish they had just witnessed. But instead of recognizing their mistake and finding a way to fix it, WWE doubled down on their decision, apparently believing that any reaction, even overwhelmingly negative reaction, is better than no reaction at all. That philosophy might work for reality television or political campaigns, but it's poison for professional wrestling, which depends on fans believing in and caring about the outcomes of matches and storylines. The aftermath has been even more insulting than the original incident. Brock Lesnar's championship celebrations have been perfunctory and emotionless, showing none of the passion or pride that should accompany winning a major championship. He holds the title like it's just another prop in his part-time wrestling career, which is probably exactly how he sees it. Meanwhile, Bron Breakker has been booked on every WWE television show, talking about his statement-making spear as if attacking someone from behind is some kind of accomplishment worth celebrating. His interviews reveal a complete lack of understanding about what makes professional wrestling meaningful to its fans, and his attitude suggests he doesn't care about anything beyond advancing his own career through whatever means necessary. The contrast with how championship changes used to be handled couldn't be more stark. In the past, title changes were treated as monumental moments that required special circumstances and storytelling that made fans believe the outcome was the result of superior ability, determination, or heart. Now, apparently, championships change hands because someone's friend attacked the champion when he wasn't looking. This degradation of championship prestige is part of a larger problem with how WWE has been handling their most important storylines and performers. Instead of building long-term narratives that create emotional investment, they seem obsessed with short-term shock value that generates immediate social media buzz but ultimately damages the credibility of their product. Wrestling historians are already comparing this incident to some of the worst booking decisions in WWE history, and the early consensus is that this ranks among the most damaging to the company's credibility and their relationship with their fanbase. The combination of poor timing, terrible execution, and complete disregard for fan sentiment has created a perfect storm of negative publicity that will be difficult to overcome. International wrestling media outlets are covering this story extensively, with most expressing bewilderment at WWE's decision to sacrifice one of their most talented and reliable performers for what appears to be a short-term storyline that serves no one's interests. The global wrestling community is united in recognizing that this was a mistake of epic proportions. The financial implications are starting to become clear as well. Merchandise sales for Brock Lesnar have been disappointing despite his championship win, while Seth Rollins' gear continues to sell at championship-level rates even after his loss. Attendance figures for upcoming shows will be closely watched to see if fan dissatisfaction translates into empty seats. Social media engagement around WWE content has been overwhelmingly negative since the incident, with fans expressing their anger and disappointment in terms that should be concerning to WWE's marketing department. When your fanbase is this united in opposition to a creative decision, it indicates a fundamental disconnect between what the company thinks fans want and what fans actually want. The situation has created an opportunity for other wrestling promotions to capitalize on WWE's mistake by positioning themselves as organizations that respect wrestling tradition, championship prestige, and fan intelligence. Several companies have already released statements emphasizing their commitment to legitimate competition and earned opportunities, clearly referencing the controversy without mentioning WWE by name. But perhaps the most devastating aspect of this entire situation is what it reveals about WWE's current priorities. They were willing to sacrifice their most dependable main event performer, destroy months of quality storytelling, and anger their passionate fanbase for the sake of one shocking moment that advances the career of a wrestler who hasn't proven he belongs in the main event picture. That decision-making process reveals a company that has lost sight of what makes professional wrestling special and meaningful to its audience. Instead of building on success and rewarding excellence, they chose chaos and controversy, apparently believing that any attention is good attention, regardless of how it affects their performers or their relationship with their fans. The tragedy is that this was completely unnecessary. Seth Rollins was succeeding as champion in every measurable way. Fan reaction was positive, match quality was consistently excellent, and merchandise sales were strong. There was literally no business reason to change champions in this manner, which makes the decision even more frustrating and inexplicable. Wrestling should be about the best performers being rewarded for their excellence, hard work, and dedication to their craft. What happened to Seth Rollins represents the exact opposite of those values, a man who embodies everything positive about professional wrestling being punished for no reason other than corporate politics and short-sighted booking decisions. The fan response has been so overwhelmingly negative that it's creating a template for how wrestling audiences can and should react when they're presented with booking that insults their intelligence and disrespects their emotional investment. The organization, passion, and persistence being shown by Seth Rollins supporters should serve as a warning to all wrestling companies about what happens when you betray your fanbase's trust. This controversy has united wrestling fans across demographic lines in a way that rarely happens in modern wrestling. Young fans and old fans, casual viewers and hardcore enthusiasts, international audiences and domestic markets, all have expressed the same sentiment. This was wrong, and WWE needs to be held accountable for their decision. The lasting impact of this incident will extend far beyond one championship change or one wrestler's career. It represents a fundamental choice about what kind of company WWE wants to be and what kind of relationship they want to have with their audience. Their handling of the aftermath will determine whether they can repair the damage they've done to their credibility and their fans' trust. What makes this situation even more infuriating is that it was completely avoidable. WWE had numerous options for creating compelling television and advancing storylines without destroying Seth Rollins' championship reign through illegitimate means. They chose the path that would create the most controversy and generate the most negative reaction from their fanbase. That choice reveals a company that either doesn't understand their audience or doesn't care about their audience's preferences, both of which are dangerous positions for an entertainment company to take. Wrestling fans are among the most passionate and loyal audiences in all of entertainment, but they're also quick to abandon companies that repeatedly insult their intelligence and disrespect their emotional investment. The international ramifications continue to spread, with wrestling promotions around the world using this incident as an example of how not to handle championship storylines and performer development. The damage to WWE's reputation in the global wrestling community will take years to repair, assuming they even recognize the need to make such repairs. But the most important question moving forward is whether WWE will learn from this catastrophic mistake or whether they'll continue down a path that prioritizes short-term shock value over long-term storytelling and fan satisfaction. The wrestling industry and its fans are watching closely to see whether this incident represents a temporary lapse in judgment or a permanent shift in how WWE approaches their most important storylines and performers. The answer to that question will determine not just Seth Rollins' future, but the future of WWE as a company and professional wrestling as an art form. Fans have made their feelings clear. Now it's up to WWE to decide whether they're going to listen to their audience or continue down a path that could permanently damage their relationship with the people who make their business possible.